I asked for lightning round questions and you guys sent them. 69 to be exact. Of course it was.
69, dudes!
But no time for any introduction, we gotta jump right into this, so let's do this, bitch! John French asked, so what exactly happened with Roswell and the Battle of Los Angeles? Also, how do you not get depressed doing these videos? I don't know, but the Battle of Los Angeles photo is like one of my favorite photos ever. As for getting depressed, there are a lot of heavy topics that I talk about on this channel, but I also have learned over the years that I know nothing at all, and that creates just enough wiggle room for some optimism. Carlos Costa asked, what is your view on the current state of Hilbert's unanswered questions? Yeah, so Hilbert's problems were created by David Hilbert at the turn of the century, and it was something that was very influential in the guiding of mathematics in the 20th century. As for my view on the current state of the problems, my view is that I just learned what they were. Link below. Vincent Logan asked, hi Joe, what do you think is a more likely date for the creation of general AI will be, if ever? Now, I think AGI is going to be a lot more difficult than we think it is, but there's also been such massive leaps in computer learning just in the last few years. I don't know. I would put it somewhere between 2030 and 2035. Patrick Weinhoft asked, what's the most interesting Millennium problem in your opinion, and which one do you think will be proven next? So I've actually been asked to do a video on the Millennium Prize problem several times, and I have not done it because, for those of you who don't know, the Millennium Prize was a series of mathematical problems, unsolvable, goodwill hunting kind of mathematical problems that were brought up at the beginning of the millennium. And the reason I haven't talked about it is because I am not a math person. I am horrible at math. The only class I ever failed in college was a pre-calc class. So I am not qualified to talk about any kind of advanced mathematics on this channel. I'm not qualified to talk about most of the things that I talk about on this channel, but mathematics especially, so I'm just going to put a link down below. Selena asked, what's your thoughts on the golden ratio? Bullshit or nah? Math. Why are people asking math questions? So I seem to remember reading that the golden ratio is actually just the way nature has arranged itself because it's most efficient, and it just evolved that way over the years because it was the most efficient, and it's not really any mystical or spiritual thing whatsoever. It's just that's nature evolving the way nature evolves, which, yeah. Phoenix Person asked, could you explain the bootstrap paradox? All right, so here in the United States, we study the Gettysburg Address in history, and so imagine if you took that Gettysburg Address and you went back in time and handed it to Lincoln before he actually wrote the Gettysburg Address, and then he used it and it wound up in the history books. If that were to happen, who actually wrote the Gettysburg Address? That's the bootstrap paradox. Which will come first, the rise of ASI or contact with more developed aliens? We seem to be on an inevitable path towards ASI and not so much with aliens. That seems like more of a random thing, so I would say ASI. Devin Bloke himself, Andrew Hawkins, wrote, bearing in mind the 1% rule, people laugh when I say most cars sold will be EVs by 2025. What do you think? I'm actually starting to think that autonomous technology is going to catch on a lot faster than EV technology, because the EV technology, you know, people already have cars that go, and there's already the infrastructure for gas and all that kind of stuff. There's just kind of more that needs to be built for that, whereas a lot of cars are already coming out with semi-autonomous and safety features, and I think it only takes one time for a car to save your life by finding an accident before, or preventing you from getting into an accident. I think that only has to happen once before you become a fan of that kind of technology, and I think we're going to see a lot faster adoption of that than we think we are. As for when it will reach a tipping point, I'm going to bet we're going to get to 50% adoption of EV by 2025. James Quigley asked, if you were 18 again and going to college, what would you major in? You know, I got to be honest, if I was 18 again right now, I might consider not going to college at all. I feel so bad for the generation that has come up behind me because the level of student loan debt that these people are dealing with is absolutely insane. There has to be some kind of ROI equation involved to justify spending that kind of money on a degree, and I'm not sure it's there anymore. I'm not poo-pooing college, I'm just saying it's not the deal that it used to be. And I would actually consider not doing it. But if I were to go to college and suggest a major right now, I would say a business. Like, I've always regretted not learning, or I've always regretted not getting a business degree, or at least learning something about business, because now I'm very entrepreneurial, and I really feel like that's where you need to go to kind of make yourself future and society proof, is to have your own thing going on. And I wish I had learned more about that. Ducarist asked, what are some possibilities of life outside our planet not based on DNA, or do you think that DNA is a universal structure? I think it's possible that life could be built on something other than DNA, but I think it would be so different from the life that we know that we wouldn't even recognize it as life. Maurice Whitley asked, if time is a dimension that allows movement, wouldn't the two-dimensional world or flatland be a 3D one? Oh, you're a tricky little minx. So technically, yes, but the term 3D has come to be associated with spatial dimensions, 3 spatial dimensions. So just from a definitional standpoint, you might not call it 3D, but yes, there would definitely be, time would be a 3rd dimension in a flatland. Oh Heck asked, if a time traveler came to you and offered you one thing from 20 years in the future, what would you want? Good question. Honestly, I think I would be most interested in whatever health advancements, especially in the world of age reversal and longevity that might have come along in the last 20 years so that I could apply it now. It got me too much gray. I don't like it. Uriel CC asked, what would be a better currency for the US? And congrats on the 2 million. So I've just been dipping my toes into cryptocurrencies. I'll probably be talking about that a little bit more in the future, but I do find them very interesting. Brandon Mansilla asked, what do you think about the private companies planning on harvesting asteroids for minerals? Yeah, so Planetary Resources, led by Peter Diamandis, they've been spearheading this idea of mining asteroids, and I think it could be really disruptive to a lot of industries if suddenly, the price of certain minerals and certain elements plummets because suddenly there's this massive new source of that. That could be a good thing or a bad thing. It could really disrupt some industries, but if it's the kind of elements that we would need for technological progress, then it could be a good thing. I don't know. There's a yin and yang there. Colin B asks, can you do a video on the pros and cons of nuclear energy? Yeah, so I'm going to put this link down below, but Vox just did a video recently about nuclear energy and about how the technology that we use for most of the nuclear reactors in the United States, but around the world too, are like 35-year-old technology. And there's actually been a lot of newer, much more efficient, cleaner technologies that have come along that work a lot better, but it's been a slow adoption process because people are so sort of afraid of nuclear, especially after Fukushima happened. And that's a shame because I think nuclear has a real part to play in the sustainable energy ecosystem of the future. Martin Henriksen asked, if you could know the answer to any question, what question would you choose? The answer to this one? Nico asked, do you have a divine imaginary friend? I do. His name is Robert. He's a dancer and he is divine. Jack asked, why does gravity exist, besides the fact that it's a property of the universe? As I understand it, we now know why things have mass, the Higgs field, but we don't know why that mass has gravity necessarily. As for why it exists, why does anything exist? Robert Sevening asked, do you think World War III is going to happen within Trump's presidency? Politics! The way things are going right now, I'm wondering if he's going to be around long enough to start World War III. Lee Aaron asked, will we clone a dinosaur by 2050? There's actually been some interesting talk about that, so yeah, I think we could. Incumbent MRR asked, can you explain the Copenhagen interpretation? Kinda did that in my Heisenberg uncertainty principle video. I'll link it right there. The guy with a name called something said, you brought it up. How does quantum entanglement affect the sexual reproduction of Congolese earthworms? Okay, I'll have you know, I actually Googled Congolese earthworms and this image came up. Robert Donig asked, if someone were to fly off into space from the ISS, for example, would he probably float into darkness forever, and how long would he survive in a spacesuit? Would his body and his suit decay over time? Okay, first of all, nightmare fuel. Secondly, I think it depends on how much oxygen is left in his suit. Apparently, these suits can hold about 7 hours worth of oxygen, so that's a good long time to panic. Interestingly, once you die, apparently it takes a really long time for your body to turn cold. People think that because space is cold that your body would immediately freeze, but there's nothing for your body heat to go into because of the vacuum of space, so actually it takes a really long time for heat to radiate out of your body. I found that interesting. Brian Doe said, can we get more drunken content from you, sir? The stream you did while drinking was exceptionally entertaining, and I would love to see more of that, please. I only had one drink. Am I that much of a lightweight? Christopher Cannon said, congratulations on 2 million views, Joe. My question is, what solutions do you see to the new technological revolution that is set to eliminate half of all jobs, according to Business Insider and The Economist, by the 2030s? We've been talking about this a lot. We will be talking about this a lot more. We're starting to see some countries dipping into the ideas of basic minimum income. I think Finland has been trying that, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of results they get from those experiments. Gianfranco Estramadorio said, since Elon Musk and NASA have said their proposal for Mars colonies, what method do you think is better, and if you had a choice, what way would you perform Mars colonization? Also explain how you would get air, water, shelter, food, and clothing. So I actually haven't done much research on the NASA plan. I need to look into that a little bit more before I can answer this, but yeah. Don Sky said, have you considered branching into more interview discussion type shows? Who would you top 5 guests be? Please say the list includes Brian Cox and Isaac Arthur, and then do it! So, funny you should ask that, because there is some stuff that's going on right now on the channel that I haven't quite announced yet, so this is maybe my chance to do that. So I do have a website now. It's answerswithjoe.com. That's where you can go to read blogs from me. That's where I post all of my video content. And yes, I do have a podcast that I'm working on. On this podcast, I'm going to start doing interviews, first just with YouTubers that I know, other creators. We're going to talk about topics that I think you guys would be interested in, but we'll also introduce them to you guys as a way of getting their name out there. But eventually I really would like to bring on subject matter experts on the kind of topics that I'm talking about here, people who know a lot more about this than I do, that can provide a lot more depth to the conversation than I can, and I think I'm really excited about that, and I can't wait to start doing that and sharing it with you guys. But yeah, no, if you're interested, it's answerswithjoe.com/podcast. I've only got a few of them up right now, but there will be more on the way, and I want to hear what you think. Please go check it out, subscribe. Stefano Cilia asked, if I ask you to make a whole video about this question, will you give me the same answer you'll give to the question? Serious one, it seems to me that technology is making the democracy crisis we're witnessing even more worse. What's your thought about it? Yeah, as I said before, I think the rise of authoritarianism around the world is something of a symptom of the economic distress that we're starting to see because of AI and automation. So that is something I'm definitely worried about. Alicia Gardner asked, hi Joe, my question is, can you explain what it means when they say the universe is flat? Jonathan Harris I asked, I've heard the universe is described as being flat, but how is it possible if space-time is 4D? Popular question. So there's some really good videos that PBS Spacetime has done on this topic. I'll try to find them and put them in the links in the description down below. But my understanding is that it's really more of a mathematical term, like the way space-time equations chart on a graph creates a flat line, and that's where that term comes from, but I could be wrong. Stian Vagen Nilsson asked, which unifying theory of everything do you think is most plausible? Quantum field theory, string theory, or some other theory? I don't know enough about them to say for sure, but I have become really interested in quantum field theory lately. Need to do some more research on that. Joseph Welcome said, what currently developing technology are you most excited to see utilized in the next 10 years? You know, the idea of treating conditions using a virus with a modified DNA that spreads this good DNA around the body in order to repair everything from tumors and cancer to genetic problems like cystic fibrosis, multiple sclerosis, stuff like that. There have been some really interesting trials that have been done already, and it seems like we're sort of at the infant stage of that, and I'm really excited to see where that goes. I'm also pretty pumped about autonomous cars. Daniel Beckwith asked, what is the difference between a nuclear bomb, a thermonuclear bomb, and a hydrogen bomb? So a hydrogen bomb and a thermonuclear bomb, first of all, those two are the same thing. The first generation of nuclear bombs were fission bombs, basically, and it did it by splitting atoms, uranium atoms. It would have a trigger when it impacted that split a uranium atom and then went up into a chain reaction of all the other uranium atoms, and that's where it got its energy. But a thermonuclear bomb is actually, it works off of fusion, so it's actually fusing two hydrogen isotopes together, and it gets its energy from that. But to give you an idea of how much stronger a thermonuclear bomb is than a nuclear bomb, the trigger that actually sets off the thermonuclear bomb is a nuclear bomb. Billy Infante asked, hi Joe, what are your thoughts on the higher dimensions? I mean the ones after the fourth dimension, time. Well, the fifth dimension is an awesome band. But according to string theory, there are actually 11 dimensions, and all the higher dimensions are wrapped up in tiny little balls. So they say. Brant Saul, murder on social media, your thoughts? I'm not for it. Justin Shillington, what breakthrough discoveries has the LHC found so far? Well, there's the Higgs boson, that's the big one. There's tetraquarks, there's missing symmetry, there's coordinated motion, and obviously the fact that they opened a portal into other universes where the only thing that's different is the name of our children's books. Gianfranco Estramadorio asks, can you explain I-7? That was 2 questions. Demerits, sir. I don't know much about Ice 7, but as I understand it, it's basically a form of ice that's formed under extreme pressures, which causes it to take on a crystalline shape and structure that normal ice doesn't. I don't know if that property gives you anything that you can do differently or not, but anyway. Joshua Walker asked, "Hi Joe, with the new NeuroLace, what do you think of people eventually renting out parts of their brain to be used for processing power?" Yeah, I've heard this idea in other places, the idea that people could actually kind of, like you said, rent out parts of their brain for processing power. But first of all, I don't think the brain works like that. And second of all, I can't imagine anybody wanting to just give up their mental faculties like that. Like I can't talk. And besides, I think by the time we get to the point where we could actually do something like that, then the speed of computers would probably be beyond what our brains could do anyway, so it's not even logical to do that. Musical Intentions asked, "How often does the average person masturbate?" You know, I imagine it's hard to get an accurate average number for that kind of thing, considering how skewed the whole thing would be because of 13-year-old boys. Rishab Madan asked, "Food for thought. What if Earth, and by that I mean the planet as a whole, has consciousness and we don't know it? Just like bacteria might have consciousness and might think, do these big creatures we live on, i.e. humans, have consciousness? As they'll never know, we might never know as well. Thoughts?" Interesting. So all of our ideas of consciousness are based on a sample size of 1, and that's human consciousness. That's the only consciousness we really know. But I think there could be all different kinds of consciousnesses below us and above us that we can't interact with or understand because we're just not on that wavelength, so to speak. So who knows? Hassan26 asked, "Who is Elon Musk? Because you talk about him as if I should know him." I said good day. Communism Forever said, "What is the possibility that we're living in a simulation?" I don't know. I do think it's a possibility. I don't know how big that possibility is. Mind of Mao asked, "Why isn't size a dimension of reality?" Well, length and width are dimensions, and that's where you get size, so... Dogfood Lid 48 said, "Why do you dream?" I kind of like to think that dreaming is sort of like your brain defragging its hard drive and figuring out what memories and experiences need to go into long-term storage. Umasheti3 asked, "The human genome is 99% identical to a chimpanzee and 50% to a banana. So what makes us human?" You know, I think just the process of life replicating and continuing on a genetic line takes up, it's just so remarkably rare and so complex that takes up a big part of DNA. And so the part that actually separates life from itself is actually kind of small. Zoe was here asked, "Will machines ever be capable of having a consciousness? If so, how far into the future do you think that will occur?" See, when people talk about artificial intelligence, we often get that confused with artificial consciousness, but I think those are two different things. I think we'll probably see computers with, AGI and even artificial superintelligence come along that doesn't quite have consciousness the way we do. I don't know that artificial consciousness can even be done, but I think those are two different things, and I don't know if/when that would ever happen. RT Bram asked, "What would a fifth dimension look like?" Dr. Cucumber asked, "Could life exist in a fourth dimension and other higher spatial dimensions, or maybe even ones with more than one time dimension, etc.?" Sure. Shan AK asked, "What are we going to do about the population problem?" You know, I've actually been hearing a lot lately that the population issue is not as big of an issue as we think it is due to new agricultural practices and, yes, genetically modified food, that there is actually enough production of food to go around, that people don't go hungry because there's no food, they go hungry because of economic reasons. Now, this doesn't mean that we can keep consuming the way we do. We definitely need to find a more sustainable way of living on this planet. I would say that we have more of a consumption problem than a population problem. Pour moi science asked, "What would be the plus and minus consequences of 1, superluminal travel, and 2, qubit computers became possible/real?" Obviously, the positives would be the ability to travel to other stars and super fast computing. The downside would be breaking causality and not being able to encrypt anything. Ovi Alexandru asked, why are LFTRs, liquid fluoride thorium reactors, not being developed and implemented given the clear economic superiority against the uranium light water counterparts? So as I mentioned before, there actually are a lot of new, much more efficient, much cleaner types of nuclear energy that's being created right now and being experimented on. Thorium is one of those. It's the one that's getting a lot of the headlines these days, and rightfully so. It looks like really promising technology, but there's a lot of these new technologies that are not being implemented and being used, mostly just because of people's old school fear of nuclear technology. Kim Verity asked, do you believe that mathematics is invented or discovered? I don't know, but when I was failing pre-cal in college, I thought it was a bunch of bullshit. Alex Cole 0409 asked, have you read the biography of Elon Musk by Ashley Vance? No. Marcus Kimius III asked, what would life be like on space colonies for humans and animals? Floaty. Hashtag my left foot asked, could you try to explain to me how quantum computers work? I have no clue. All right, the last time I tried to give a short answer to how quantum computers work, the entire internet jumped in and told me how wrong I was. So I'm going to skip this one and try to research this more and do a video on it in the future. It's something I've been talking about for a while. Eventually, I'll get around to it, I promise. Hashtag my left foot again. Demerit asked, after humans colonize the solar system, Mars, Europa, the moon, Ceres, etc., and assuming we can actually do it, where do you see humans going next? Well, that all depends on if we can ever figure out how to travel faster than light, because if it turns out that that's just like an unbreakable barrier, then we ain't going nowhere. But assuming we can, Proxima Centauri is the closest star, and there's actually a planet there that they think has the potential for life, so I don't see why that wouldn't be the first place we go. Hashtag my left foot again. Demerit. What do you think the future of space travel will look like? I think there'll be more drives that don't require fuel to run, like ion drives, and maybe even the M drive if they can get that figured out. That seems to be a technology that's in its infancy now, and there's a lot of positives for going that route in terms of fuel storage and that kind of thing. So it'd be interesting to see where things go there. The real Ben Anderson asked, could you explain what quantum spin is? You touched on it in your entanglement video, and I'd like to know more about it. It's a type of angular momentum. So there are two different types of angular momentum that act on elementary particles. There's orbital momentum and there's spin angular momentum. But it's not spin in the sense of what we would do with a basketball or that kind of thing. It's actually a totally different thing, way too complicated to get in here. Mo Envy asked, the progression of video games is starting to mirror real life, kind of like an alt reality. Not a question, but sure. Kari Broke asked, what were some of your favorite hobbies in high school? Playing tennis, writing screenplays, and making rap music. Really. And no, you will never hear it. Although some of it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. Drew Springhetti asked, could you briefly state the major hurdles we need to overcome in order to colonize Mars? Assuming we can overcome these challenges, would you go to visit Mars? So when you're talking about a planet that has very low gravity, no liquid water, no magnetic field, no oxygen, a fraction of the air pressure that we have here, all the hurdles are major hurdles. So no, I'm not really in that much of a rush to get there. Through Springhetti, that sounds familiar, said, if you were in the ISS and you had a ball and wanted to throw that ball back to Earth, would you throw the ball directly at Earth, or would you throw the ball against the direction of the ISS, slowing the speed of the ball's orbit? Well, the ISS travels at 17,000 miles per hour, and the fastest pitch in baseball history was clocked at 105 miles an hour, so my bet is it doesn't matter. Bruno on Snapchat asked, if you could live anywhere in the world, where and why? It's kind of a bucket list thing for me. I would really like to live for 6 months at least somewhere in the world where English is not the primary language. I'm kind of leaning towards, say, France or Spain, but if you know a better place, you can talk me out of it. Osmo asked, where do you get your ideas for your videos and what gear do you use? My gear is a Canon 7D, and I use a wireless microphone. These are Sennheiser wireless mics. And I record it on my computer these days anyway. And as for where I get my ideas, it's mostly from you guys, which I want to thank you so much for, because I get so many great ideas, not only in the comments of these videos, but on all my social media. Sometimes people just straight up ask me questions. Sometimes questions arise from conversations that take place there. And it means the world to me, and I'm super happy that you guys are so engaged and a part of this, and I just want to thank you all for that. And that's a pretty good place to stop. So I will. I'm also stopping because I'm out of questions. So thank you guys so much for all of these questions. This was a huge lightning round video. It took me 2 different sessions of recording today to get it all out. I hope this was fun. I hope it's not super long. If it is, I apologize. And if you've lasted this long and you're still watching right now, you're a super fan. So put the word banana in the comments down below to prove you're a super fan. All right, quick shout out to my answer files on Patreon who support this channel. If you would like to join them and get access to my secret vlog, you can go to patreon.com/answerswithjoe. And this video, like always, is sponsored by cankerboy.com. If you have canker sores that happen more than once a month, sucks, but it's not a curse. There is a solution out there. You can go to cankerboy.com and find out more. If you guys enjoyed this video, give me a nice thumbs up. If you want to share this video, please do with the whole world. And comment below and all that kind of stuff. You know what to do. I want to thank you again for watching. You guys go out there and have an eye-opening week, and I will see you next Monday. Love you guys. Take care.